What's going on, YouTube, fam? It's your boy Tony 2 times, and we back with another episode of Hood Tales, man. Before I start, be sure to tap that like button. It's free. It helps get the video out there. Definitely watch this video to the end so you can hear the full story and all the details in the case. For my day one fam, y'all already know it's all love. Thanks for tuning back into another episode. If you're new to the channel and you feeling the content, feel free to subscribe. Definitely hit that notification bell so you can be notified every time we drop a new video. Oh yeah, feel free to share the channel with your peoples. Everybody is welcome. With that being said, let's get right into the story. For most men, when we are young, single, and still outside in the streets, we just want to have fun. A lot of us try to get all the lust out of our system, get our rocks off as much as we can before we even think about jumping into a relationship. For some, it might be because they are in their prime. They just want to enjoy themselves with no strings attached. For others, they might just feel they haven't met a woman who can keep their attention. That's why it's so common to know men 40 plus who never even thought about marriage or even been in a committed serious relationship. It's because they have been on the scene so long, they are traumatized, knowing they have smashed other dudes' wives, girlfriends, and their trust level is zero. They feel like if they cuff something, the same thing will happen to them. Free game, ladies. You can be a 10, the baddest around. But if you are too friendly with other men or always outside, you can be as loyal as they come. But in a man's eyes, you are not to be trusted. They will take a quiet 5 that stays to herself and doesn't have male friends. But every now and again, you will find a young man and woman trying to be traditional, be in a committed relationship with goals to get married. But just because you respect the relationship and each other doesn't mean others will. Every man, whether they admit it or not, has had a simp or tender moment. Whether we address our girl's coworker for always trying to be in her face, or she stays out a little too late with friends and you look through their phone. Because when we are young, we know it's vicious out here. And your girl to the next man is free game. And that male ego can lead to some crazy situations. And on this episode of Hood Tales, we'll be taking it right outside of New Orleans to Slidell, Louisiana, to discuss the case of a man who texted his co-worker's girl, and after that, it turned fatal. Back in 2022, 22-year-old Zakary Stewart was trying to navigate life and get on his feet. Originally from Alabama, he came from a big, tight-knit family in which Zachary learned early on about responsibility, hard work, even seeing the union between his parents who were married, the pros and cons of being in a committed relationship. After high school, where he graduated from Coleman High, he went straight to work. Years later, just saying what his next move would be, he found a good job at a car dealership in Slidell, Louisiana. Zachary had friends out there and moved in with a few of them. In the mix, he found the young lady he was into, who we will call Jessica for the sake of the story. The two dated for a minute before they decided to make it official. Now Zachary was setting his future. Good job, looking for a place, his girl on his side. He was in a good space in life. At the Hyundai dealership where he worked was another man and co-worker, 23-year-old Brian Taylor. Brian was described as a pretty hard worker who mostly got along with everybody. He didn't mind conversation and seemed like a cool dude. Him and Zachary were cordial, as co-workers usually are, but not really friends. It's not clear how, if Jessica worked at the dealership, or if Brian already knew her or was familiar with the young lady. But he was familiar enough to have her phone number. He knew she was in a relationship with Zachary, but as most men do, he often tried his hand anyway, shooting her texts saying if the relationship was solid or if she was still willing to go. At first, she ignored the messages, but soon Zachary found out Brian was texting his girl. In September of that year, the two men continued going to work daily, but Zachary approached Brian like, bro, you being disrespectful by texting my girl. You need to fall back. Brian just smirked he brushed Zakary off. As days went by, tension between the two men grew. They were sizing each other up, and Brian still was texting Jessica. Now, she was letting Zach know he wouldn't stop contacting her. On September 16th, 2022, both men were at work when Zach told Brian, "It's going to be a problem if you text my girl one more time." Feeling like Zach was trying him, Brian's ego got the best of him, and he pushed Zach from behind, basically telling him to do something about it. That's when the two men started fighting, throwing hands. As coworkers tried to break it up, the damage was already done. Both men were leaking, bleeding from their mouths and noses, and Brian was furious. He walked over to his work bay and grabbed his gun. He ran back up on Zach, but Zach, being a southern boy, he wasn't scared of no gun and still was willing to fight. As a few more punches were thrown, Brian upped his gun as coworkers yelled out and yelled his name, told him like, "Nah, bro, don't do it." A shot went off, and Brian ran out the building. Coworkers called local police, who responded to the dealership to find Zakary suffering from a gunshot wound to the chest, and unfortunately, he would be pronounced gone at the scene. As police got the story from coworkers about what happened, they wouldn't just have to go off word of mouth. Cameras in the building caught the whole altercation, and there was no doubt Brian shot Zach. He was eventually tracked down to a nearby neighborhood, taken into custody, and because it was a fight, charged with manslaughter and not first-degree hit. Zach's family back home in Alabama were devastated and felt the situation was petty and didn't even have to go that far. As the case made its way to trial, Brian's attorney was going for the self-defense claim, basically saying Zach was mad about his girlfriend and wanted to fight, but Brian had his weapon on him and shot. But prosecutors fought back, showing video that Brian initiated the fight by pushing Zach from behind, stating the aggressor can't claim self-defense, even pointing to the fact the fist fight was over when Brian ran and got his gun, came back with a look on his face that they described as rage, with a few co-workers also testifying that the two had been having words over Brian texting Zach's girl for over a week. It wasn't much Brian's attorney could do. In the end, he was found guilty on manslaughter and was facing the max of 40 years and a minimum of 20 years in prison. It's not clear how much time Brian received, but he is currently serving his time in a Louisiana state prison. Rest in peace to Zachary. I send my prayers and condolences to his family. I'm not sure how Brian got Shorty's number. Maybe she worked at the dealership or they knew each other before Zach moved to town. Yeah, Brian was dead wrong for texting a young lady, knowing she had a man. But like I said earlier, another man doesn't feel like he owes you any loyalty. Your girl does. But if she shows any interest, even a text back, dudes will take that as an open invitation. Zach lost his life. I'ma say not over his girl, but some men feel like it's all about the respect. And with the male ego, a lot of times they can't tolerate that. She wasn't his wife, and he was young. It's no telling if they still would be together or not. And now he is gone. Brian threw his life away over nothing. I'm sure it was a lot of women in that town, but you locked in on bro girl. But I want to end this one with a question. Have you yourself ever been in a similar situation where you felt disrespected, somebody was texting or trying your significant other? If so, how did you deal with it? Let me know in the comments. And remember, we got to succeed, not to fail, so we won't be just another hood tale. Yeah, man, it's a crazy story. Rest in peace to that young man. I definitely send my prayers to his family. But I ain't gonna talk too much more about this one. Y'all leave it in the comments. I appreciate you if you made it to the end. Y'all already know it's all love, fam. It's another episode of Hood Tales. It's your boy Tony 2 times. I'm out.